Welcome back. The flow of information from the streets of Iran continues in spite of the authorities banning the world's media. We're examining how new media is countering the impact of government restrictions. From Amsterdam, I'm joined by Ethan Zuckerman, Research Fellow at the Berkman Center for the Internet and Society at Harvard University. He's the co-founder of Global Voices, focused on global grassroots citizens media, and also co-founded Geek Corps, aimed at technology training in the developing world. From Los Angeles, Soraya Sepapor Ulrich, an independent political essayist and Iranian writer. And here with me in the studio is Dohi Fasihian from the National Iranian American Council and Executive Director of the Democracy Coalition Project, implementing multilateral human rights strategies. Before we get back to our decision, let's take a look at the results from our chat room poll, where we were asking on live station, can the authorities in Iran truly block the influence of new media? Well, 20% of you said yes, but a large 80% of you said no. Now, of course, this is just not a scientific poll, just an indication of how our live station chat room is seeing things. Let's get back to questions with a question for Ethan in Amsterdam, Ethan Zuckerman. It's the young that have primarily driven the use of technology, using Twitter and Facebook and so on. Now, but when you look at the aspect of citizen journalism, Ethan, where ordinary citizens are now controlling the flow of information that the world is getting, that's something quite unusual for a country like Iran. It seems the information's coming from sort of the grassroots and coming out there. Can this be reversed? I mean, when the authorities, I guess, take charge eventually, or is this something that will last permanently, that people will know they have the power through new media?
Well, Riz, one of the things that we see at Global Voices, which is the project that we run monitoring citizen media around the world, is that when you have a crackdown on the traditional press, you'll see citizen media emerge as an alternative to it. We've seen this happen in Fiji. We're seeing it happen in Madagascar. It's not really a surprise to see it happen in Iran. And in Iran, citizen media has a real history where some of the reformists, some opposition figures, moved online when there was a crackdown on the traditional press in 2003, 2004. So there's a real history of this. I think what's going to be interesting is to see how aggressively Iran goes about censoring access to the internet. What we've seen so far is Iran systematically degrading its connection to the outside world. Well, we see roughly 1/10 as much bandwidth as we've seen in the past, and that's a big change, and it makes it very hard to report from within Iran.
Thank you, Ethan. I've got a call from Tehran, actually. Sayed, who's with us, who's actually at a protest in Tehran today. Sayed, tell us first of all the extent of turnout on the streets. I gather that restriction to access to areas has been restricted, so the groups are much smaller. But what's the kind of mood on the streets right now?
Yeah, actually, this afternoon, I was in the Haftarah Square. Mm-hmm. And what happened there was the Ba'ath militias, and they were beating people not to gather together, because what happened is just being so angry about the people gathering together and saying protesting actually for Mousavi elections.
So, did you want to ask us a question regarding the impact of new media? I mean, how do you think things are going to change? As far as, the results of the protest, what do you think they're going to achieve?
As far as I know, and as far as I try to, the internet, there is no possibility to come to the Facebooks, to the Twitter, to YouTube, or any other internet services that can help us to show us what we are saying to the world, what we are presenting to the world. Actually, right. There's no access to the internet now.
All right. Well, Sayed, obviously it's having some effect. Thank you very much for joining us on that. We've got Nasser, who's been waiting in London with a question. I think Nasser, go ahead. Thanks for your patience. Oh, Nasser, I think we lost Nasser. Okay, sorry, we'll try to get him back on at some point. Soraya, if I could bring you in here and ask you what impact you think the international sort of community has had by actually not being that vocal on what's going on. I mean, America largely has taken a step back when it comes to certainly, commenting in the media. Has that been a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, because I think Mr. Obama needs to show that when he says that he's going to change, and he means that it's a change, for the past 30 years, America, in spite of the Algiers Accord that it signed with Iran at the time of the hostage crisis, whereby it said that it would not interfere with Iran's internal affairs. Every US president did in fact interfere with Iran's affairs. They violated a bilateral agreement. This does not bode well with America's foreign policy. It sends the wrong message to the world. And every country has learned not to respect what a US president says. Mr. Obama, if he is to follow suit, nobody will respect another American president. So this is not just about Iran and what he does vis-a-vis Iran. North Korea will not believe what Mr. Obama will have to say to him when it comes to a settlement. So it's not just about the internal politics, the street politics of Iran, which is what's taking place. And it's very important. It will reverberate throughout the Middle East. And he is being very smart. And I hope that the Republicans and the neocons don't exert pressure on him to do otherwise.
Okay, we've got a caller on the line from Arizona. Afsaneh, thank you for your participation. What would you like to ask?
You're welcome. I just want to explain a little bit more about the history of Iran.
Very briefly, though, Afsaneh, because we don't have a lot of time.
Because after 2 years after revolution in 1979, when Khomeini held the cultural revolution in Iran, they banned all newspaper, all books, and everything that Iranian wanted to have a freedom. And I just want, it's not only the 10 days before the election, it's the 30 years that every Iranian suffer from this government that banned everything.
Afsaneh, do you think things will change with what's happening on the streets? Do you expect any major change in Iran?
I believe, because I was in the revolution on 1979. I was 14 years old, but I knew people, when they are going to the street, they can take and get everything they wanted. Okay.
Thank you very much for taking part in the show. Let me get a question to Dochi here that came in by email from California, from the US. Rohabi wrote in saying, I can't explain how hurtful it is to see the Muslim world's deafening silence. Iranian people have always supported human rights issues in other countries. Who will speak up for Iranian people? Why are our Muslim brothers and sisters not defending us? Is that been the case?
I would fully agree. And it goes back to the point that you were speaking to earlier. It's not just the United States or the Europeans that should be speaking out against violence against unarmed citizens and human rights violations. The entire world should be condemning these violations against the Iranian people. That's different than taking sides in a political conflict. So I would say that, yes, I think the entire world should be condemning what's happening and urging Iranian authorities to not use lethal force, to pull back.
So America should be saying more, but with different tact, not political, but on
not political, but the United States should probably be saying in more strong words that they condemn human rights violations, they condemn the fact that there's been a media blackout, that the Iranian authorities should pull back the besieged militia, that there should not be lethal force on the streets, that Iranians should be able to freely express themselves and peacefully assemble, which they've been trying to do. This is the message that the world should be telling Iranian authorities. They don't need to take sides in a political conflict. They don't need to pass judgment on what happened in the elections. But the Iranian people should have the right to express themselves, to peacefully assemble without the threat of lethal force, without the threat of being beaten up, without the threat of being detained. 500 human rights defenders, journalists, opposition leaders have been detained. 1,000 protesters have been detained. For all we know, there's torture taking place right now. This is not. This has gone beyond a political conflict. I mean, this is a severe crackdown and brutal crackdown on the Iranian people.
Let's squeeze in a quick call from Canada. Amir, good to have you on the line. What would you like to ask?
Hi, good evening, good afternoon. I'd like first to thank Al Jazeera for covering Iranian affairs.
Thank you.
And my question is to our Muslim brothers from Morocco to Indonesia. Why they don't come on the street? At least show some solidarity with the Iranian. I'm not asking they don't come to discourage Iranian not to become Muslim. We are not talking about that. It's just for when people are getting shot and beaten up. They are their Muslim brothers. They're being beaten up by a regime. And if it was done by Israeli, I would have liked to see what would be the reaction of our Muslim brothers in Muslim countries.
Amir,
this would be very hypocritical
I'm going to thank you. Listen, Amir, I'm going to thank you for your comment, only because I've got about 40 seconds left. I just want to ask Ethan Zuckerman in Amsterdam. Ethan, just 30 seconds to go. Do you really think that there's going to be any substantial change now in the way that the Iranian authorities can clamp down on what's going on? Do you think they can silence what's going on?
I think they're discovering just how difficult it is to silence new media. I think they're discovering that if people can send email, if people can make phone calls, the information will get out of the country, it'll reach Iranians outside of Iran, it will make it online, and people around the world will pay attention to it. It's very, very hard to get this cat back in the bag.
All right, Ethan, Soraya, and Dokhia, I want to thank you all for joining in, and thank you for your debate. Sorry we don't have any more time. I'd love to have more on this. And thank you for being with us. On the next show, Peru wants to open up the Amazon region to foreign mining and energy companies, but indigenous Indian groups say it will destroy their lands in the rainforest. We examine the cost of development and the violent fallout it has created. For now, from me and the team, we'll see you next time.